Last month, the United States government released its UFO files. Not some of them, a significant trove of classified documents on UAP encounters, unidentified aerial phenomena, going back decades, real footage, real pilot testimonies, real government records. Steven Spielberg had already finished Disclosure Day before that happened, and sitting in that cinema this week, I couldn't decide whether the timing was coincidence or prophecy. Here's the setup. Disclosure Day operates on one foundational premise, that every UFO story you have ever heard is true. Roswell happened, the government has known for 70 years, and now someone is trying to tell the world. Margaret Fairchild, played by Emily Blunt, is a Detroit TV meteorologist whose life is turned inside out after a strange encounter in her own kitchen. Daniel Kellner, Josh O'Connor, is a cybersecurity expert who goes on the run with his girlfriend Jane, played by Eve Hewson, after they come into possession of an artifact that the government will do absolutely anything to recover. These two storylines converge in a way that build toward one of the most audacious climaxes Spielberg has put on screen since the last time he made a film about something from beyond our understanding. The screenplay is by David Koepp, who wrote Jurassic Park and Mission Impossible with Spielberg before, working from a story that Spielberg himself wrote on his iPhone Notes app. I want that to sit with you for a moment. The man who directed Schindler's List wrote the outline for his Alien Disclosure epic on his phone's Note app, and it is, somehow, magnificent. Let me tell you what this film gets genuinely, undeniably right, and there's a great deal here that is genuinely extraordinary. The opening sequence. Spielberg opens Disclosure Day from the POV of a wrestler being stomped on by his opponent's boot. A dizzying, disorienting, deliberately jarring choice that is completely unlike how any of his previous films begin. He usually starts quietly and builds. Here he kicks you in the face on frame 1. It works immediately and completely. You are off balance, paying close attention, wondering what kind of film this is. And that alertness stays with you for the next 2.5 hours. Emily Blunt is extraordinary. She has been on an extraordinary run of performances for years now, and Disclosure Day does not slow that run down. Margaret Fairchild is a woman who has been trained her entire professional life to explain the inexplicable, weather, in terms that ordinary people can understand and act on. And when the inexplicable comes to her kitchen table in the form of a cardinal bird that should not be there, Blunt plays the collision between professional skepticism and genuine wonder with a precision and humanity that grounds everything around her. In a film that could easily become cold spectacle, she is the warm beating heart. Janusz Kamiński's cinematography is among the best of his long collaboration with Spielberg. The film uses light in a way that constantly reminds you something is present that our eyes weren't designed to see, a luminous quality to ordinary spaces that makes the familiar feel permanently slightly wrong. And John Williams' score. His work with Spielberg needs no introduction, but this is Williams near his very best, building a musical language for something that has no earthly precedent. The set pieces are spectacular in the way only Spielberg can make them. There's a chase sequence in the third act that is the most purely cinematic thing I have seen this summer. And underneath all of it is a film with something genuinely worth saying, about empathy, about the need for connection, about what happens when a society built on information control is finally forced to confront the one truth it cannot manage. It is simultaneously the most timely film of 2026 and a film that feels like it has always been waiting to be made. Now, it's not perfect, and I think you deserve to know exactly where it stumbles. The script, for all its ambition, trips over itself in the middle section. There are stretches of exposition that feel clunky in a way that Spielberg's best films never do. Moments where characters explain things to each other that they would both already know, purely to make sure the audience is keeping up. David Koepp is a gifted screenwriter, but the sheer scope of what this film is trying to say occasionally requires more scaffolding than it can carry elegantly. And then there is Jane. Eve Hewson's Jane Blankenship begins the film as arguably the most compelling character in it, the one character who's genuinely uncertain about what she believes and genuinely changed by what she discovers. Roughly halfway through, she's essentially sidelined. The film stops being interested in her internal journey and starts using her as a plot function. That is a real creative mistake in a film this interested in empathy, losing your most genuinely curious character at the moment the story needs curiosity most. A World War III subplot, hinted at throughout the film as global panic spreads in response to disclosure, is also almost entirely abandoned. The news footage glimpses of global chaos are genuinely unsettling. The film never follows them anywhere meaningful. For a filmmaker as attuned to political consequence as Spielberg, that feels like a missed conversation rather than a deliberate choice. Variety made a point that stings a little because it's partially true, that where Spielberg once seemed to be leading the culture, here he's following decades of UFO lore and mythology. Close Encounters created a visual language for alien contact. Disclosure Day borrows from that language rather than inventing a new one. Here's where I land. Disclosure Day is not Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It is not E.T. It is not the transcendent culture-defining Spielberg sci-fi that some people are going to want it to be. If you go in expecting to feel the particular awe of those films, the sense that you are watching something that will change how you see the sky, you may leave slightly disappointed. What it is instead is this: a spectacularly made, a genuinely thrilling, emotionally engaged chase film with ideas above its station and the craft to almost always pull them off. Emily Blunt gives one of the year's best performances. The opening sequence is among the most audacious things Spielberg has done in 20 years. The cinematography is exceptional. The set pieces are extraordinary. And the film's central message, less fighting, more empathy, you are not alone, lands with the sincerity of a filmmaker who has spent his entire career exploring exactly those ideas and still believes in them completely. The script stumbles, Jane gets abandoned, the World War III thread goes nowhere. These are real creative failures inside a film that is reaching for something genuinely important. I'm giving Disclosure Day a 6.5 out of 10. See it on the biggest screen you can find, and when you walk out, look up. You will. Like the video if this helped, subscribe for weekly reviews. And I need to know in the comments, do you believe we're alone in the universe? Because this film is going to change some answers, and I want to know if it changed yours. See you next time.